Raj Grover, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
John, thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. I'm super excited to have a wonderful conversation about acquiring and retaining key top talent and managing a multinational team. This is just a fantastic topic, one that I am super interested in. So I'm excited to pick your brain and learn from you and have a nice dialogue. Where are you joining us from today?
I'm in my office in Calgary.
Calgary, wonderful. And I'm south of Salt Lake City in Utah. As we get started, I wanted to share Raj's bio with everybody. Since starting his first company at the age of 22, Raj has established himself as one of Canada's foremost business strategists and deal makers. He is the founder of High Tide and its subsidiary companies of Valiant Distribution and Canna Cabana, while also being the co-founder of High Tide subsidiary Famous Brands through organic growth and strategic acquisitions. Raj has grown High Tide from one small shop of 2 employees in 2009 into one of Canada's largest cannabis retailers with over 1,000 amazing team members and business interests spanning North America and Europe. And I could go on and on and on, but I'm going to just pause there and give you a chance, Raj, to share anything else about yourself that you would like listeners to know about your background or personal context, and then we'll dive on into the conversation.
Sure, John. I think you've summed it really well, and thank you for that. I am the founder, president, and CEO of High Tide. For a little bit of background, High Tide's story began in 2009 with just an independent smoke shop called Smoker's Corner, and I grew that business into 19 stores organically. 10 of those stores were franchised. Decided to take the company public in April of 2018. By December of 2018, we were a publicly traded company. I've always been sort of a diversified business. Even when I was an independent business owner, I was not only managing my retail shops or developing retail shops, we were also designing, manufacturing, and distributing cannabis consumption accessories, which we still do until today. But the business has evolved quite a bit, which I would love to speak to you about. Today, High Tide is Canada's largest cannabis retailer through the Canna Cabana brand. We have 139 stores operating in the country. We are a corporate-owned portfolio, so we don't do franchising and other licensing deals on the retail front. We own it all here in Canada. We have been a leader in cannabis retail in Canada for quite some time, and that momentum is very much continuing for us. And we're doing it with a bit of a balance of organic growth and accretive M&A. And I say accretive because every single one of the deals that we've done is accretive. But again, coming back to the story, transition from a private company into a public company in December of 2018. And haven't looked back since. And today, like I said, we have a 139 store portfolio in Canada and growing very quickly. We have a goal to reach 150 stores by the end of the year. I think we will beat that goal quite handsomely, but let's see how things go. And then to supplement that, we are also in the CBD segment and the consumption accessory segment. So we operate in 3 main business segments, which is THC, CBD, and consumption accessories, CBD and consumption accessories through our online platforms. We acquired 6 businesses in the United States and internationally, 5 in the US, 1 in the UK last year alone. We've slowed down on that a little bit. I have my reasons, which I would love to discuss with you. And we're focusing more on the Canadian brick and mortar side, where our concept is literally skyrocketing and taking off. So I want to make sure we capitalize on that momentum.
Yeah, super, super interesting. And I'm interested in learning a little bit more about your M&A strategy here in the US. How has it benefited High Tide? And, specifically in relation to our conversation for today, acquiring and retaining key top talent globally, that's a challenge for any organization. And how have you gone about trying to do that?
Sure. So, like I said, M&A strategy is focused on both in brick and mortar stores here in Canada, which we are presently very focused on. And historically, last year, we acquired a bunch of e-commerce platforms, which we are very much looking forward to ramping up the pace again, given at the right time. And again, there's reasons for that is where our equity price is sitting today. Just like every other cannabis company, we've taken a big beating, not because of our own doing, but more, guilty by association, I like to call it, with our very exciting but unique cannabis industry. So, when you talk about retaining top tier talent, John, you've summed it correctly. It's getting more and more difficult to acquire top tier talent. But we have 2 ways of looking at it. We've got talent that we hire here in Canada through our brick and mortar stores, which is a highly regulated landscape, as that, as you understand the THC that we sell, THC products that we sell in our stores. So, Canada's not made it easy in terms of, because it's a regulated business, it's understandably so. Our staff has to, generally for any staff to work in a retail store in Canada, they have to get at least a base level certification to become a bud tender. Or, they have to have some sort of certification as a prerequisite to work in a retail store networks, which definitely makes it difficult to find and retain and manage the staff here on the THC side of things. And then, we operate in bigger cities and also some smaller towns. It makes it even more difficult in smaller towns because the pool of people is limited. But when you look at our international business, which is US, and then our international business in UK and Germany and Holland, we find it relatively easier to manage and retain talent on the consumption accessories front and the CBD front, because those businesses are not regulated the same way as cannabis is. So it's a significant difference between the two. However, I think personally, we've done a great job as a company acquiring talent on both sides of the equation. And, we are over 1,300 people and counting today at High Tide. So very proud of it.
Yeah, that's tremendous growth. You described 2 employees at one smoke shop back in 2009, I think it was, to 1,300 employees. That's fantastic. And anytime you're scaling in that kind of a rapid pace, it brings with it all sorts of challenges. And you've highlighted the regulatory market, like all these different pieces that just add complexity to the situation. And I'm curious what you've seen over the last couple of years, just in relation to the shifting labor market. I mean, right now it's hard for everyone to get good talent. You have extra layers of complexity and challenge, I think. So how have you gone about trying to do that in retaining the certified people, the top talented people, to help your organization continue to scale and grow?
Sure. So, you're right, John. Not only does growth lead to a lot of major challenges, given today's environment, what's happening in the world, all companies are finding it very difficult to, retain and manage good talent. And while we are dealing with some of these same challenges, the High Tide approach to talent has always been a bit different. So, for example, when we're pursuing M&A targets, we're not just looking for companies to acquire, but we're looking to acquire strong management teams that will be vested in our success jointly. And I think this is a very critical part, because if you're just going about about your growth and you have not looked at how are you going to manage your human capital, that growth will be lost eventually. You will not be able to execute and deliver on an ongoing basis. You may be successful in the short term, but in the long term, it will pose a lot of problems. So, we've always paid attention to that part. And then again, our story, our execution, our diversified ecosystem, we're a very differentiated ecosystem in cannabis. Like I said, we deal in THC, CBD, and consumption accessories. We have brick and mortar stores, and we also have e-commerce platforms that is very attractive to a lot of industry participants. So that helps us attract good talent as well. And then, last but not least, our discount club model through our Canna Cabana stores is extremely loved by our customers and our staff. So that also helps us attract and retain great talent on our brick and mortar storefronts.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And so one of the other questions I had about just the human capital side, I mean, there's a lot we could dive into there. So I'm happy to see this conversation go any direction you would like it to, from the scaling standpoint, the human capital standpoint. There's just so much there that we can discuss. But I'm wondering, with High Tide, and then you have the subsidiaries and you have this multinational team, how have you worked to integrate and have your people at different subsidiaries, companies working effectively together, especially as you're continuing to scale and grow?
So, look, we've always been a diversified cannabis ecosystem, right? We didn't just have the smoke shops or head shops previously. We were a franchise model. We had corporate stores. We were designing and manufacturing accessories. We also had an online component to the business, and that has just grown a lot more widely today. And that has become into an international business today. We operate in the UK. We are now in Germany through our Blessed CBD business. We also have an accessories warehouse and a CBD fulfillment center out of Amsterdam, which is our grasscity.com business. So having the experience since 2009, to grow these businesses and become a vertically integrated ecosystem and a diversified ecosystem, I have learned to manage. And, this is not me alone. This is, we have a top tier senior team that is always at the helm of retaining and finding and managing good talent. And we've done that quite successfully, one, because of my business experience in the past, and we've already been this diversified cannabis ecosystem. And second, we've clearly seen that division, like I mentioned, in opportunities to retain good talent on the THC front versus not so regulated businesses like the CBD and the consumption accessories. So put together with given our past historical experience and our unique diversified ecosystem, which is a very exciting and dynamic workplace to work in North America. You can look us up. We're highly differentiated from the next cannabis operator. I think all in all of this helps us with the experience, with our diversified ecosystem. It's helping us really, retain and manage top tier talent.
Yeah, excellent. What have you seen as like some of the biggest, if we're going to unpack this, the challenges of scaling and having this multinational team, different subsidiaries, as you've looked to attract and retain good people, great people, what have been some of those biggest challenges and even setbacks that you've experienced, and how have you worked to overcome them?
So, there's always challenges. Like I said, there's prerequisites in Canada for bud tenders to work in our stores, or for district managers, regional managers, area managers. They all need this certification prerequisite to take place for them to work in our stores. And this is challenge. It's challenging for any companies or any industries at the moment to acquire this talent, but it's compounded in cannabis, right? Like if you look at the cannabis business, the pool of candidates that are interested in cannabis is already smaller than, let's say, mature retail industries and broader retail industries. So we deal with the same kind of challenges that other industry participants deal. But I think identifying this problem and nurturing good talent right from the start, and keeping the good talent and keeping them in the culture and giving them a pat on the back when they deserve it, and calling the team out and giving them a shout out with all of the progress that we have made, instills this culture within all of us that we are one family and we are one company. And that is, I would say that is at the top of the pyramid at High Tide, on how much we instill these values and how much we care about this culture. Culture is most important to me. You cannot build a national or an international empire without having the support of your people. We are nothing without our team, and we are very, very clear about this. And this comes through when I speak to my team. This comes through to when our other senior leadership speaks to our team. And this is why, John, so far so good, fingers crossed. We are not we don't find ourselves in a crunch that we can't find people, and it's becoming really, really difficult to handle our business. We've not hit that moment yet, but I'm hearing this in the industry. I hear this on a daily basis on how, even from our HR leaders here in Calgary, on what the reality of the situation is and how fortunate we are, in managing our own human resources. One of the things that I can tell you about that is different from maybe other cannabis companies, is that we have a very strong compliance team, and we have a very strong government relations team that also monitors these regulatory changes in real time. So as these changes are coming, like the certification requirements, etc., we're able to be nimble and agile to move and change our hiring practices if needed. And we've done that in the past. So I think just being on the pulse, being on the ball when it comes to managing your human resources and instilling that strong sense of culture is the only way companies can get through in this difficult time and place yourself successfully for the long term.
Yeah. And I like your focus on, not only you're clearly attentive to the human capital pieces of all this and the importance of your team. You're very much attentive to the inherent challenges that come with rapid growth and scaling, and ultimately you want to do it in a sustainable way. So kudos on all of that, because that's not necessarily what I hear consistently when I'm talking with people in different organizations who are leading different organizations. And in fact, there's one organization, I won't name it, but an organization, a tech company, large company that had scaled, oh man, year to year growth, revenue growth, like off the charts, but year to year people growth, like in the 200s percentile, like year after year for like 5 years straight. Like it was crazy how fast they were growing. And all that was wonderful. And they would go on industry panels and talk about the success of their organization and all these different really positive things. And then one day I open up my LinkedIn and I just see a notification about this company, and they're laying off half of their workforce. So they scaled so rapidly that it just wasn't sustainable. They just couldn't do it. And, I had my reservations, but it seemed like they had their ducks in a row and they were doing a lot of good things. And ultimately it caught up to them and they just scaled too fast. It wasn't sustainable. And they had some major pain. And sorry to say for many of their employees that they, had to go find another job. And so we can't highlight enough and emphasize enough the importance of just being super attentive to these issues. And scaling and growth and all of that is fantastic. I'm all for companies strategically growing and adding value to the market in a meaningful way. But let's make sure we're doing it in a way that makes sense, so that we're not chopping off our own foot, in the process, because that can easily happen.
John, I could not agree more. I mean, there's two sides of the equation, right? One is growth, running your business. But what is the opposite side of the equation? You have to balance it out. You have to know exactly where your payroll needs to be as a percent of revenue. These things are easier said than done. But if you don't know that, and you're just saying, I'm going to grow 10-folds and I'm going to grow 10-folds with my people too. Sure enough, you need people to run your ecosystem. Look at us. We have 139 stores and counting. We have a goal to get to 150 stores, and this can't be done without people. We need 8 to 10 personnel or retail staff minimum to service our stores that run in 2 shifts, mostly 2 shifts. And you need this personnel, but you need to have a business strategy. Is your concept working well? Are you actually generating cash out of these stores? Can you sustain your labor in these stores? You can't just blindly do these things, because what hurts equally is to let people go eventually. Sure, as big companies, you can hire and then you can scale down, but you're also playing with people's lives and you're wasting your own time and your management team's time that also gets frustrated with these things. So, look, and I will not say that we are doing things perfectly, but we definitely keep our eyes on the ball and our hands on the pulse. We know what is going on in terms of how much labor do we have at any given time? What does that look like as a percent of revenue? I regularly monitor this on a bi-weekly basis with my senior team, and we keep on it, and so far so good. We've managed it quite well. If you look at our numbers, our G&A, our payroll, our wages, salaries and wages as percent of revenue, we're a value-focused retailer. It's even more important for us to really pay attention to how we are managing our labor line. But on the other end of the spectrum, pandemic-related issues, just what's happening in the world with supply chain, a lot of the mindsets for people changed after the pandemic, and things are not perfect for any company at the moment where you can align your payroll perfectly to where your growth is. But I will say that you have to do it to the best of your ability, and you have to keep your eyes there, because running a business is so many things, right? You're wearing so many hats. You need to look at your sales. You need to look at your margin. You need to look at your locations. You need to look at your competitive landscape, all of the above. And most importantly, you need to look at your payroll. On what does that look like? You can't understaff your stores. You cannot overstaff your stores. So I think we've got a good balance going, John, but you've emphasized on a very important point. What is the point of grow, hire, and then get rid of a bunch of people, and then put them on the wrong footing, and they have to start all over again. They have to worry about their career again. So a stitch in time saves 9. That's what I always say. So be focused on what you do.
Yeah, and I suppose that's a healthy thing to just always recognize and remember that things can go really, really well until they don't, and then all of a sudden you're scrambling, and that's what happened with this other organization. things happen out of the blue. Like, not many people thought a global pandemic was going to completely transform the global economy and the nature of the way we work. And yet it did. And so, there's things that we can't foresee, but we can try to, look into the future and forecast and be strategic, so at least we're in the best, possible situation to be responsive and to be agile. So I think all of that is fantastic. Well, this has just been a really fun conversation. I know you're going to have to go here in just a few minutes before we wrap up. I just wanted to give you a chance to share with listeners how they can get connected with you, find out more about your work, and how they can work with you and your team. And then give us a final word on the topic for today.
Sure. So, well, first of all, thanks again, John, for having me. Really appreciate it. It's a very meaningful conversation that we had today. I would love to say this to your listeners that, I'm actively building High Tide. I'm very serious about my business, and I'm not very active on social media, but Twitter is the one platform that I am active, and I mostly or almost exclusively use it for business only. So if investors or your listeners want to reach out to me, Twitter would be the best. At Raj Grover Hiddy is my handle, Twitter handle, that they can reach out to me on. And again, appreciate the conversation. It's a very meaningful conversation. And I would just leave your listeners with the same thought that, if they're looking to build a business, your team is absolutely your backbone on how your business will actually end up doing. It's your people. You can have all the greatest ideas in the world, but if you don't have an excellent team on executing those ideas, they practically go nowhere. I say this all the time for a reason, because I recognize this myself. This is not a one-man show story. This is absolutely a team getting behind you. And you also don't want to mismanage your business in terms of miscalculating hiring. Payroll as a percentage of revenue is very different at 11% versus 19%. It can destroy your entire business, or it can make your entire business and put you on a really solid footing. So, that would be my advice to your listeners, that pay attention to that line, take care of your team, treat them as you would want to be treated. It starts right from the top, starts with the leader of the organization, and then trickles all the way down. So, these are my final thoughts on the subject, I would say.
Wonderful. Raj, this has just been a real pleasure. I encourage listeners to reach out, get connected, find out more about what Raj and his team can do for you. And as always, I hope everyone will stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week.